Hi everyone, I'm Stan, product manager at Ellie, and I'm excited to introduce to you Ellie 7.0 and our latest feature, sub-glossaries and subfolders. So with this functionality, we're changing one thing within Ellie, which is we're changing the collections and we're now calling them folders. And what's cool about that is that now any folder in Ellie can have its own glossary. So previously, in Ellie, you can only have one glossary, and then you would use it across all your collections. But what we realized with our customers, especially working in the enterprise, that doesn't often work. You want to work across different domains. You want to have different definitions of entities like what is a customer, and this functionality lets you do exactly that. So here's how it works. So this is my own organization. It's called Acme Demo, so an imaginary company Acme. And here I can see different domains by which I have structured my Ellie environment. I can see I have finance, HR, operations, and other domains in the organization. Let me open sales and marketing. And within it, I can see that I have other different sub-projects or subfolders like customer retention, HubSpot CRM, etc. I have my models and the glossary. And this is the interesting part. So now within my folder sales and marketing, I actually have my own glossary, something we didn't have before. And you can set it up in the settings. So when you create a new folder, by default, every folder now has a own glossary enabled. You can disable that as a part of the creation process. And within the folder settings, you can basically see in the glossary, okay, so I have my own glossary enabled. You can also define which glossaries to use in a specific folder. So for example, if you have your enterprise glossary set up in a certain folder, you can always recommend your users to use it across different models, kind of suggest to reuse entities from there as much as possible. So let me go and create a new folder in our sales and marketing. So I'll call it Demo 7.0 Ellie folder. I'll set up some limitations on the glossary. So I'll say that let's always recommend organization glossary elements by default as suggested. I'll keep that the folder has own glossary. And let me set the permissions. And this is actually pretty cool. So by default now, every time you create a subfolder, it will inherit the restrictions from the parent folder. So if in my sales and marketing folder I have set certain restrictions, the same restrictions will apply to this folder I'm currently creating. And any changes I will do in the sales and marketing folder will also apply to the restrictions to this new folder I'm creating. But I can of course always override it. So I can set this folder open, which means that anybody in the organization can make changes in this folder. And I can also override the restrictions and set specific users who have access to my specific folder. Let's, for example, say that Mark Simmons has editing rights. And of course, all the super admins, all the admins in the organization also have access to edit this folder. So I've created a folder. Now what I'm going to do is create a new model. Let's call it demo model. And essentially, it's the same conceptual modeling view that we have currently in Ellie, but there are some new things. And the new things are related to our new search or create entity on the right sidebar. So if I start writing, let's say I want to add an entity customer, what I'll see is that, oh, there's actually many versions of the customer entity already created. I can see that I can create a customer entity within my glossary of the demo folder. I can use a suggested glossary entity customer from the organization glossary, and there are some other glossaries that have the customer entity. Because I'm not sure that I maybe want to make any changes, or I'm not even sure what is a customer yet in my project, I'll just use the default organization customer entity. Let's say we also, a customer can be a person. Okay, I see that the person entity already exists in the organization, and let's create a relationship between them. So I can see that a person can be a customer. Let's just change the cardinalities 1 to 1. So now I have these two entities, but you might mention that they look a little bit different. So let me add another entity, let's say city. So I created an entity within my glossary, and what you'll notice is that the font is a little bit different. So it's the same text, but the person entity has italics on it. And this is an indicator that this entity is actually a linked entity. And what it means is that it's an entity used from another glossary within my conceptual model. So if I double click on it, I can see that, okay, this is an entity from the organization glossary, and on all the metadata is from the organization person entity. If I go back and I go to the customer, the same applies here. This is a customer entity from the organization. And if I wouldn't have write access to it, I would not be able to make any changes, but I could still use it within my model. And then if I look at my city entity, this is an entity that actually is in the glossary of our demo folder. And I can make any changes because I have write access to this, to this folder. So what happens if you realize that, okay, this customer entity, so we need a customer entity in our model, but we cannot really use it because we, let's say, need to change the definition or we need to add some attributes. No worries, we thought about it. So I'm going to right click on the entity and I'm going to press this clone feature, which essentially lets me to do a deep copy of the customer entity from the organization and bring it to my current glossary. So when I press confirm, I will create a new entity customer in my current folder, and I will also maintain all the relationships as I'm replacing the existing entity in the model. So now I'm going to add a relationship to the city. So customer lives in a city. There can be many customers per city. And here's my very simple model. What we can see here is some entities are from this specific glossary and some are used from the other glossary. And this is kind of the cool part of us adding the subfolders and the sub-glossaries functionality, is that now you can work across your whole organization. You can split your workflows across different domains, different projects, maybe even different data products. But at the same time, you can keep reusing elements from other teams, other people, governance people, etc. And when they make some changes to those entities, they will also automatically be updated within your models, making it much easier to maintain changes, make sure that people reuse entities across the whole organization, and letting everybody use Ellie on an enterprise level. So these are the core features of the new Ellie 7.0 that lets you do more across your organization with Ellie. If you have any questions about them, let us know. Go join our Slack community, send us a message at support@ellie.ai if you have any questions, and make sure to check out our updated documentation where we tell you more about some more in-depth changes that are brought with this functionality.